Greetings and welcome. On today's menu we have two mysteries that no one could solve to this day. It's been a while since I made real crime videos, so I'm doing it now. There are so many unsolved cases around the world, but with today's technology it's getting harder for criminals and killers to escape the justice. Let's hope these cases will be solved as well someday soon. Since you are here, be so kind and hit subscribe and like button, that would be great help. And yeah, if you like what I do and you want to support my channel, now you can buy me a coffee. All you need to do is hit that little icon on the right lower corner of my channel banner and we can enjoy coffee together while listening the stories. That would be greatly appreciated. Okay, let's get down to business. Evelyn Grace Hartley was an American missing teenager from La Crosse, Wisconsin, who disappeared on October 24, 1953. Her disappearance sparked a search involving 2,000 people. In the first year following her disappearance, investigators questioned more than 3,500 people. As of 2021, no trace of her has been found. On October 24, 1953, Viggo Rasmussen, a professor at La Crosse State College, hired Evelyn Hartley, the daughter of fellow professor, to take care of his 20-month-old daughter. That evening, Evelyn's father Richard called the Rasmussen house several times after she failed to check in as planned at 8:30 p.m. He received no answer. Concerned, he drove to Rasmussen house. When Richard arrived, the doors were locked, the lights and radio were on, and items were scattered all over the house. The living room furniture has been moved around to different places, as were Evelyn's school books. Richard found her shoes in different rooms, one shoe upstairs and one downstairs. He also found his daughter's broken glasses upstairs. Richard did not find Evelyn in the house. Richard also found every room in the house locked, except one in the basement that was locked at the back of the house. An open window, there was missing a screen, and the screen was found leaning against the outside wall. He also found a short stepladder belonging to the homeowner positioned at the open window. Pry marks were found on some windows and footprints has been found in areas of the house. Blood was found both inside the house and in the yard, with bloody handprint about 100 feet away in a garage and in nearby house. The child Evelyn has been caring for was found asleep and unharmed. Police believe someone took Evelyn through the yard but dropped her on the ground before carrying her further. The police used dogs to pick up her scent trail, which ended at Cluey Drive 2 blocks away. Police thought Evelyn was most likely put into a vehicle and driven away. They were told by the neighbor that they have seen a car repeatedly driving around the neighborhood, and another person who lived nearby claimed they had heard screams an hour earlier. The witness thought it was just children playing. 2 days after the incident, local resident Ed Hofer told police that while driving his vehicle, he was almost hit by a Buick, as it was speeding in western direction. Inside the Buick, Hofer reported seeing one man was driving the vehicle, while a second man was in the back seat with a girl. Several days later, various items of clothing, many of which were stained with blood, were found at different locations. Blood found on the jacket matched Evelyn's blood type. Over 1,000 members of local community, including law enforcement officer, the National Guard, Boy Scouts and La Crosse State College students and faculty, participated in search in October 1953. The Civil Air Patrol and US Air Force were also used in the search. A vehicle inspection program was also undertaken with the intent of searching every vehicle in La Crosse County. Gas stations attendants were asked to check cars for bloodstains. Recent graves were reopened to determine if Evelyn's remains were placed with a recent burial. In May 1954, mass lie detector tests were conducted on La Crosse area high school boys in an attempt to find more information about Evelyn's disappearance. The local authorities had planned to test 1,750 students and faculty. The testing was controversial and was halted after around 300 were tested. After his arrest, murderer Ed Gain was considered a suspect in Evelyn's disappearance, as he was visiting a relative a few blocks away from the Rasmussen house at the time. However, Gain denied involvement in the disappearance and passed lie detector test. Police found no trace of Evelyn's remains during a search of Gain's property. In November 1957, authorities announced that Gain had been cleared of any connections with the disappearance of Evelyn. Evelyn's kidnapping led to one of the biggest searches in the history of Wisconsin. Public efforts to find her have included the Charlie Project and the Sudie Daisy Root Project. A reward fund established in the immediate aftermath of the event reached $6,600, equivalent to $64,000 in 2020. Her parents moved to Portland, Oregon in the 1970s and are now both deceased. In 2004, a man named Mel Williams came forward with conversation he recorded years earlier at the bar. In 2004, a man named Mel Williams came forward with a conversation he recorded years earlier at the bar. Although his goal was to record a band which was performing, the conversation between two men was unintentionally recorded as well. On the tape, one of the men, Clyde Peterson, implicated himself, Jack Gallagher, and an unnamed third party in the disappearance, claiming that Evelyn was murdered and buried in Lafarge, Wisconsin after her kidnapping. Although authorities promised to investigate the lead, no further developments were ever made. Dorothy Jane Scott disappeared on May 28, 1980 in Anaheim, California. She had driven two co-workers to the hospital after one has been bitten by a spider. While they were waiting for a prescription to be filled, Scott went to get her car to bring it around to meet them. Her car approached them, but it sped away. Neither could see who was driving, as its headlights had blinded them. They reported her missing a couple of hours later, after not hearing from her. In the preceding months, Scott has been receiving anonymous phone calls from the man who had reportedly been stalking her. He had threatened to get her alone and cut her up into bits so no one will ever find her. In June 1980, a man called the Orange County Register, a local newspaper that had published a story on the disappearance, and claimed that he had killed Scott. Police believed that caller was Scott's killer. From 1980 to 1984, Scott's mother Vera also received phone calls from a man who claimed to have Scott or to have killed her. None of the calls could be traced, however, because the caller would not stay on the line long enough. Scott was a single mother living in Staten, California, with her aunt and 4-year-old son. She was a secretary for two joint-owned stores, one that sold psychedelic items like love beads, lava lamps, and the other a head shop. Co-workers and friends said she preferred staying at home, was a devout Christian, and did not drink or do drugs. Her parents babysat their grandson while she worked. Scott's father Jacob said his daughter may have dated on occasion, but had not steady boyfriend as far as the family knew. Months before her abduction, Scott had been receiving strange phone calls at work from an unknown male. The caller alternately professed his love for her and his intent to kill her. Scott's mother recounted. One day he called and said to go outside because he had something for her. She went out and there was a single dead red rose on the windshield of her car. Scott's mother said one call especially horrified her daughter. The man reportedly told Scott he would get her alone and cut her up into bits so no one will ever find her. Because of the calls, Dorothy began considering to purchase a handgun. About a week before her disappearance, she started taking karate lessons. At 9 p.m. on May 28, 1980, Scott was at an employee meeting at work. She noted co-worker Conrad Bostron did not look well and had a red mark on his arm. She and other co-worker, Pam Head, left the employee meeting to take Bostron to the emergency room. Scott then changed her black scarf to a red one and stopped by her parents' house on the way to the hospital to check on her son. Medical personnel determined Bostron has suffered a black widow spider bite and treated him. Head said she and Scott remained in the ER waiting room. At no time, Head said, did Scott leave her side. Bostron was discharged around 11 p.m. and given a prescription. Scott offered to bring her car to the exit. She did not want Bostron to walk too far in his condition, as he was still not feeling well. Head said Scott used the restroom briefly before heading out to the parking lot. Head and Bostron filled his prescription and waited at the exit for Scott. When they did not see her after a few minutes, they went out to ER's parking lot. Suddenly, they saw Scott's car speeding toward them. Its headlights blinded them so they could not see who was behind the wheel. They waved their arms to try to get Scott's attention, but the car sped past them and took a sharp right turn out of the parking lot. Initially, both thought Scott had an emergency come up with her son. A few hours later, after not hearing from her, Head and Bostron reported Scott missing. At about 4:30 a.m. on May 29, Scott's car, a white 1973 Toyota station wagon, was found burning in an alley about 10 miles from the hospital. Neither she nor her supposed kidnapper were anywhere nearby. On August 6, 1984, a construction worker discovered dog and human bones side by side, about 30 feet from Santa Ana Canyon Road. The bones were partly charred, and authorities believed they have been there for 2 years, as a bushfire had swept across the site in 1982. A ring and a watch were also found. Scott's mother said that watch has stopped at 12:30 a.m. on May 29, about an hour after Head and Bostron last saw Scott's vehicle. On August 14, the bones were identified as Scott's by dental records. An autopsy could not determine the cause of death. A memorial service was held on August 22. About a week after Scott's disappearance, her parents received a phone call from an unknown man who said, "I've got her," and hung up. The same man called almost every Wednesday afternoon and said either that he had Dorothy or had killed her. The calls were usually brief and usually occurred when Vera was home alone. In April 1984, the man called during the evening. Jacob Scott answered and the calls stopped. After Scott's remains were found in August 1984, the family started receiving calls again. Police installed a voice recorder at the Scott residence. They were not able to trace the calls, however, because the man never stayed on the line long enough. A possible motivation in Scott's murder surfaced June 12, 1980. Unknown man called the front desk of the Orange County Register. The paper had run a story that day about the case. A managing editor told police that man said, "I killed her. I killed Dorothy Scott. She was my love. I caught her cheating with another man. She denied having someone else. I killed her." The editor said that the caller knew Conrad Bostron has suffered from a spider bite that night of May 28. He also knew that Scott has been wearing a red scarf. She had changed her black scarf to a red one after the employee meeting. Neither of these details has been published in the June 12 article. The caller also claimed Scott phoned him from the hospital that night. Pam had disputed that claim, saying she has been with Scott the entire time and she has not made a phone call. Investigators believe that anonymous caller was responsible for Scott's death. Okay, that's all for today. If you have any interesting stories you would like to share, true, fictional, creepypasta, legends, whatever fits channel content, send it my way. Emails are on the screen and in the description box. If you need copyright-free background videos, visit my other channel, Monarch Free Videos, and see if there's something you could use in your own creations. No need to ask for permission. Before you leave, don't forget about that coffee. Until next time, stay safe.